So greetings, friends and followers. This is Nurses Talking, and I am Jill Barcy. And as always, if you like what you see and hear, subscribe. Leave us a comment and let us know what you think. And here on Nurses Talking, we speak to nurses anywhere in the world and at any stage in their nursing journey, from student to retirees and anywhere in between. And so today, I am very, very pleased to welcome two nurses to the program today. Typically, I only have one. Today, I have two. They're Karen DiMarco and Antra Boyd. And together, Karen and Antra, who are educators, entrepreneurs, advocates, have a company called Renegade, right?
Mm-hmm.
Renegade, RNegade. See what we did there?
Yeah, see what you did there. It says that Karen is a bit of a wild card and believes that authenticity serves as the laxative for connection, communication, and inspiration. She's a transformational coach, a published health researcher, an educator, a foul-mouthed humorist, and she goes by Renegade. And Antra, it says, Antra is formidable. Her insecurity-inducing professional resume is as a Navy veteran, a 20-plus-year clinical nursing experience in the OR, a wickedly talented entrepreneur in the emerging role of private patient advocacy. And this was cultivated from the compost of challenge, triumph, and transformation that her life has so abundantly provided. Ladies, welcome, 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 welcome.
Oh, thanks for having us.
Thanks. Tell us yours now.
I will tell you mine. Hopefully I turn that the phone off. So I am a registered nurse. I'm also a midwife. Pretty much retired. I occasionally do a little per diem just to keep my hands and my head in the game. But I am 70 years old now, so I'm pretty much retired.
Oh my God.
So I've been fortunate.
Had
good fortunate to work in the Caribbean, in the United Kingdom. I became a nurse and midwife in the United Kingdom and the United States. I'm a mother of three, a grandmother of three, and just doing my own thing. YouTuber and an author. So there I go.
Oh, wow. That's amazing.
And so I love talking to nurses. It's been one of the things that I've wanted to do for a long time. And then COVID came along and Zoom blew up. And I thought, it's this way. So that's how come I'm talking to you today.
Oh my gosh, that's amazing. I love it.
Fantastic.
Yeah.
Silver lining.
So first things first, I always want to know why people are nurses. So anybody can go first. Why are you a nurse?
Now, me? Because my mom told me to.
Okay.
Like, honestly, that's why. I wanted to be a writer. Always did, but I also, more than that, wanted my mom to like me. So, and my mom and her identical twin both went to Georgetown and were both nurses. So when I got into college, we were walking down the beach on spring break. I had my mom and her twin flanking me on either side, and I got into University of Michigan early, and I didn't know, I knew what I wanted to do, but so my aunt said, Karen, what are you gonna, what are you gonna major in? I'm like, well, I think writing. I love, or something creative, like journalism, or maybe creative writing, or maybe even advertising. I love coming up with slogans and distilling ideas down in just, and they kind of gave each other this knowing glance. And well, in order to be a writer, you have to be and make a living at it. You have to be a really good writer. We love what you write, Karen, but why don't you become a nurse? We're nurses, and it's a great job to have when you have a family and blah, blah, blah. So I'm like, okay, I'll be a nurse. But I went into nursing. I was crying on the back porch of my apartment on the day of graduation. I don't want to be a nurse. I mean, I was good at it, because I'm no dummy, and I excelled as a student, but I just decided that if I was going to be a nurse, I was going to be a super nurse.
Yeah.
So I went into ICU and trauma and flight nursing, the high adrenaline stuff, just to keep it interesting. And now I teach and I write about nursing, a
Nursing.
lot. So it all worked out for the best.
The writing just had to come in, right?
Yeah, for sure.
What about you, Antra?
Me, let's see. So I was in high school and I was going down some sort of dark and scary path. And it kind of hit me around my beginning of my senior year, like, are you gonna wait tables at the pancake house for the rest of your life, or are you gonna do something with yourself? Go to college. And like, it looked to me like those were the only two options I had. Nobody in my family ever told me I had to go to college. I didn't even know what college. I was a senior and I didn't even know at that point. I hadn't even applied. I didn't know what college to apply to. So I picked something. I'm like, well, I like people. I can help people. I'll be a nurse. So then I kind of like closed my eyes and put my finger on all the nursing schools in Colorado and picked one, applied, barely got in by the skin of my neck because I didn't do well in high school. And quickly proved that I was more than competent to be a college student and to be a nurse. So that is how I got my start. Pancake house or nurse?
Somehow we come to it. I speak to so many nurses, and some people tell me, I always wanted to be a nurse. And then some people tell me, one nurse told me 2 days ago, she said, I came to kicking and screaming. So we come there in all kinds of different ways.
Yeah.
But
Sure.
when you got there, because, when I became a nurse, it was not what I thought it was going to be. So was it what you thought it was going to be?
I had a really the nursing school that I attended was really student centered, and they were really hands-on with their students. So it didn't matter whether I thought it was what I didn't have, honestly, I had no conception of what it was going to be like, because I just, like I said, I was going to end up in the pancake house. So,
Yeah.
there wasn't really, I had nothing to compare it to. So it was what it was. And I had really hands-on teachers who really encouraged me to do clinicals that I really wanted to do. So like I did a clinical in the operating room, this is so funny how this turned out. And I loved it. I was in there with the heart patients and I was like, oh, this is so cool. And then one of my other very favorite clinicals was community health. And I got to walk alongside a woman who had like 5 children. She was severely diabetic. Her sugars were out of control and she couldn't read and she had no help to get to the doctors. And so they let me advocate on her behalf. So I went with her to the doctors and I helped her totally get her blood sugars back under control. And, now you fast forward through 25 plus years of nursing. And not only did I spend 20 years in the operating room, but I also started my own patient advocacy business, not ever knowing that that's really the trajectory of my life. But nursing school was kind of where it all started.
Yeah. It's amazing how I'm very happy that I'm still around to see just how much there is to do in nursing now, and how how much there still is. How big it's going to get. When I became a nurse, I became a registered nurse in England in 1974. There wasn't that much that I was going to do outside of a hospital area. So for me to see what's happening in nursing is so exciting. And so I'm so glad that people can do this. And so my question, first of all, is how did you two meet? Because as I read your bios, you are two very self-assured, and very, I don't want to say opinionated, strong personality people. How did you meet?
Independent, sovereign.
Independent is the word. Okay.
We, after I had been working clinically for 16 years, I kept trying patient advocacy. Like I kept seeing like people with a nurse in the family, if the patient was a healthcare professional or they had one in their family, they had better outcomes. I mean, like it was so obvious, shorter hospital stay, less morbidity, mortality, less complications, less medical error, because the family or the patient knew to demand the standard of care, and they knew how to ask questions and what they deserved as a patient. And I always thought that that was really unfair, and there's got to be a business, around that. Like if someone doesn't have a nurse in the family, they should be able to hire one.
Mhm.
And then I kept dabbling with like little pilots, to see if this could be a go. I talked to some deans of nursing schools, like what could this be a role, this private patient advocacy role? And there wasn't, like, if you search the internet, there wasn't anyone doing it.
Mhm.
And I started and stopped it because I was having a family at the time. But there was a woman in Arizona, Karen Mercero, who during those 10 years where I was starting and stopping, she just went at it full court press and made had all the failures and learned all the things that you need to do to become a private patient advocate. And she had a program called, and eventually she partnered with the University of Arizona. So I went to her program and got home and hit the ground running. And 6 months I had a waiting list. So I had this, overlap between clinical nursing and my own business. And then she asked me, because I was like really thrived, like my business got going quick. She asked me to come back as faculty and teach. So I did that every year that she held that program. And I went through in 2011, and Antra went through it in 2017. And that's where we met. I was faculty on that program.
Awesome.
And we fell in love.
I was gonna say it was love. It was true love, or love at first sight.
Actually, she hated me first.
I hated her at first. Took me a while.
Yeah.
So your business is called Renegade, which is really intriguing. I love the name. But how did you come up with that name? Either of you.
Do you want? Well,
Either
it's just
of you. How did you come up with the name?
because we never, like, even you asked, was my nursing career what what I expected? I didn't even think about it. I just made it what I wanted it to be. Like, I was told, you can't be an ICU nurse as a new grad, and it was like, oh yeah. So I found where there was a nursing shortage and went there and kind of lied my way into an interview and became one. You can't be a flight nurse without, less than 5 years experience as an ICU nurse. Oh yeah. So fast forward to a couple years ago, it just, we applied to Antra, and I were like that with, both of us were like that with everything. So my CEs were due to renew my nursing license. And I was just like, the status quo, pick through a pile of boring, antiquated, inconvenient crap, unless you leave your family and spend a bunch of money to go to a conference. You might get some cutting edge information there, but or something relevant to your practice. But like, why do we waste our time? It's like it's an insult to my pathological curiosity when I'm learning all the time anyway. So I went on this hike anyway. I was procrastinating, and I threw in this podcast called, it was Joe Rogan podcast. He was interviewing this guy, James Nestor, who wrote a book called Breathe. And it was halfway through the hike. I had bought the book on Amazon. It was a review of anatomy and physiology of the entire respiratory system. It had like theology and history and how breathing is important in different tribes and how it shapes your face, if like the narrowing of our faces because of the food. Like, it was fascinating. And so I get down off the mountain, and I call Antra. I'm like, it just occurred to me, I'm listening to 20 hours of audio. I am like such a geek. We both were like, we'd spend hours on the phone talking about quantum biology, and it's like, this is fantastic, And I'm like, it just like hit me. I'm learning at least 20 hours a week, stuff that up levels my life, is relevant to my practice, makes me a better nurse and professional, and also better at my life. Why is that not worth CEs? So it was one of those things for both of us. Oh yeah, we have to do it this way. I don't think so. So that was kind of like, we're renegades. It's like we tell the status quo where it can go.
We're just done asking permission, right? Like, nursing as a profession is a profession. So why are we always kowtowing to the corporate curmudgeons and okay, it's like we've all learned helplessness, and we're not doing that anymore. We're done. We're not asking permission.
Exactly. And that right there is one of the goals of this whole thing that I do, because I really, really want nurses to see that you have power, and you need to recognize this power and use it. because I honestly believe we talk all about burnout and all of this that's going on. And yes, people tell me all of these things about shortage of staff and stuff like that. And that's valid. That's really true. That's valid. But a lot of it, I believe, comes from our not recognizing who we are and what we are, what we bring to the table. And if we don't recognize it, I don't think we should be surprised that other people do.
No.
Yeah. And, I think that burnout and meaning are incompatible with one another. And the reason that we are facing burnout is because we've allowed the corporate curmudgeons to take the meaning out of why we became nurses in the first place. I mean, how much
That's
time
why
do
I
we
asked the question at the beginning.
Yeah. How much time do we actually get to spend with our patients doing all this red tape BS that is just a waste of our time and checking a box we've been using this term a lot lately, Antra and I, the artistry of common sense. Like, it makes no common sense. There's so much. And we demand to have the meaning put back into our lives, our jobs. And I don't care how short staffed you are. Like, you get like, there's a difference between being tired and working hard and being burnt out. And I don't think when you have meaning in your work, you can't be burnt out.
That you get burnt out. Yeah. Honestly, I hear you. I agree. I have stopped referring to it. It's become so corporate. And we walk in these, as you said, we walk in these straight lines that you do this. Our whole lives now, it's become an algorithm anyway. So if this happens, you do that. If this happens, you do that. Forget about the actual person that you're taking care of.
Right.
And so I've really stopped referring to it as healthcare, and I call it disease management because that's all we do. And not even very effectively. But anyway, that's another story. I won't go on that soapbox.
You don't want us to get on that soapbox either, because we will go down that rabbit hole.
What would you say? What would you say though? Now that we've gotten that off our chest, what would you say though is your greatest achievement? And I'd say so far, because I know that there's more to come from the two of you. So what's your greatest achievement so far?
I think my biggest achievement so far is, feeling empowered to say no more, to be the person that I'm talking about, to be free and sovereign, to say, I'm not doing this pile of crappy CEs anymore, and you can kiss my rear end if you think I'm going to. I'm not doing it. And by the way, now I'm going to make my own.
Yes. Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
I think Karen and I have, because our friendship is so strong, and because we've been with each other every step of the way in building our Renegade, and like, we get people all the time reaching out to us who say this is the best idea. Like it's so exciting to see people feel empowered. Maybe CEs is just a tiny little world of, part of nursing. But when they see us do it, when they see us say, yeah, no more, then that empowers them in their areas, right? And we firmly believe that we are the answer to our problems. It's our responsibility to fix this mess.
Yes, indeed. Indeed it is. Indeed it is our responsibility.
Preach, sister.
But when I speak to nurses, and I'm really happy to see that and to hear it, because often when I speak to nurses, it's been so ingrained in us to just follow that it's really hard to let go of the, well, maybe I can't do this. Yes, you can. You're a nurse. Yes, you can. Yes, you can. Remember that you are the one that any institution within healthcare, it's on the nurse's back. We need all the other people, but if you take the nurses out, it just doesn't exist. Yeah. So remember you're that. So I have been asking people, it started when I recognized that I could recognize a nurse without ever being told that the person was a nurse. And so I started asking people, well, what do you say is the most recognizable quality of a nurse to you? In one word, what would that word be? So what would that word be for you?
You go, Karen.
I'm sorry.
I was
Oh,
well, we made up a word for it.
okay.
Because the word authenticity didn't feel very authentic to us. Like,
Yeah.
it's like, what is the ethos? What is the at the heart of that word?
Of that.
And it's real. We came up with the word FREAL, which combines the F word and real, FREAL.
It's okay.
But that's how I recognize a nurse. It's like, I'm from Cleveland, and it's the same way I can recognize someone from Cleveland. Like anywhere in the country, anywhere in the world, actually, I can smell it off somebody from Cleveland. There's no pretense. There's no small talk. It's not, there's no like, hi, what do you do? What are you wearing? What are you driving? There's none of that. It's like straight to the heart of the matter, and you can feel it off of them. There's not a, I don't know. There's just no whatever whatever small talk is the manifestation of. There isn't any of that with nurses. No filter.
And I would say that's the exact same word I would use.
I actually like the word.
Yeah, and you don't have to be a foul mouth to say it. So, that's fine.
What advice would you give to someone who wants to be a nurse, though? Because right now we're hearing so many things. If someone wants to be a nurse today, what would you tell them?
I just wrote a syllabus of this. That Josephine. We interviewed for our podcast. We interviewed Josephine Moa, who wrote a book called
How to Be a Great Nurse.
How to Be a Great Nurse.
Yeah.
Yeah. She's fantastic.
I've spoken to Josephine.
Oh yeah, she's fantastic.
Yeah.
But when I was doing the syllabus for the podcast, that was one of the activity questions. What advice would you give to somebody, a new nurse or someone thinking of becoming one? And there was 3 truths that I would tell them about. Number 1, you're not going to be prepared. It's like nursing school is the written driver's exam, but you still have to drive in the car, So, and number 2, the responsibility to train you in the knowledge and skills you need to have to be an effective nurse comes from the organization, the unit, the nursing home, the rehab, whatever facility where you get that the responsibility to train you falls on them. But not all trainings, not all orientations are equal. It is your responsibility. This is truth 3. It is your responsibility to understand the knowledge and skills required to be an effective and safe to deliver the standard of care to the patients that you serve. And if your unit or the organization isn't giving it to you, ignorance ain't an excuse. It's your responsibility to ensure that you have those knowledge and skills. And that just rolled off of me because I just wrote it. And I really think that nurses come out of school, they're shocked that, oh my gosh, I don't know anything. Well, that's normal. You'll get it. And if you don't, you gotta find out.
Yeah.
What would I say? I agree totally with that. And then I also think that I'm hopeful that the nurses coming out of nursing school, there's enough of us out there that are bucking the system and saying no more, that by, hopefully nurses are starting to see that nursing is a profession. We are not part of the bedside charge. That is just utter BS. And again, it's going to take us to fix this problem. So I hope that, or I would tell nurses that is their responsibility too, that your profession is your profession. It's not the state boards. It's not the hospital. It's not, it's none of those. It's yours. And you have to make it the way you want to make it. And how do you do that? Well, you get creative, you meet people, you have conversations, you jump off of a ledge into the unknown and see what happens.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
You don't toe the line.
Yeah. Exactly. Because I say if we were doing what we were supposed to, we have unions and we have organizations and those are good. Those are good. But clearly there's something missing, because if there weren't something missing, we would not have all of this disease. And what is missing is really us, is our knowledge of ourselves, knowledge of our power, knowledge of who we are. And you know, and stepping out with that knowledge.
How about this idea? How about we teach nurses that we're born healthy, it's our birthright? How about we teach nurses that we're not, you know, these sickly human beings who can't, you know, fight disease within themselves? Like, if we started with that foundation, healthcare would be so different.
It would. It would. But we've gotten to the place where we begin to think that there is something wrong if there isn't anything wrong.
Yeah.
And I'm beginning to not understand that.
That's a great point. It's
So one of my crusades, actually, I'd like to call it that, really, in addition to this, or in conjunction with this, is to try to get nurses, as we talk, to focus a little bit on themselves and take care of themselves. And I start asking nurses, what does self-care mean to you? So what does it mean to you?
What does it mean to me? Oh, this is my one opportunity to see if I can eke a tear out of Karen.
Is it gonna happen?
I don't know. I'm just teasing. You know, that one for me, like I said, you know, by the time I graduated from high school, I was, you know, I was pointed in a path that was not going to be good for me. And, you know, fast forward to I'm 52 years old, and it took me a really long time to find myself. It took me a really long time to love myself. And I think that self-care, ultimately, there are many tools and many portals into who we are, and that the only person that can find that portal is yourself, which took me, I mean, I spent 25 years trying to have somebody else find me the portal. And so I think ultimately it really is about loving yourself and honoring who you are as a human being. And whichever way you go about doing that is the way that works for you. Like, there's no one way. You know, self-care, is it a bath? Yeah, it's a bath if it's gonna make your body feel good, and it's gonna make you just, you know, sometimes I get into a hot bath and I'm like, oh my gosh, this feels so amazing. Like, that's self-care. It's not, I took a bath, so I took care of myself. You know what I mean? So ultimately for me, it's been this long journey of how do I love myself? That's self-care.
Yeah. Because you were about to say, Karen?
I agree with, just to agree with Antra, like, I think that there's a little thread of codependence in every nurse, right? Like, we're the ultimate sacrificers. And what I've found, self-care isn't any one thing, but it begins with treating yourself as someone you adore. We find it so easy to treat other people like we adore them, our children, our spouses, our friends. And what I found is you have to give that to it's like, there's a reason they say put your own oxygen mask before you assist others. You know, we have a finite reservoir. Actually, we have an infinite reservoir, but we think we have a finite reservoir, and it's selfish to take it for ourselves. But the thing is, when you find the courage to be disliked and not live your life according to the world's ought tos, you tap into this infinite spring, you know, like, it overflows onto others. You can work a 14-hour shift and have more energy at the end of it when you're tapped into that thing. And that is the thing that will tell you to take a bath. That is the thing that will tell you need a day off. You know, when you learn, I call it this, I have this metaphor called the gap. There's a gap between who you truly are when you really love yourself and who the world told you ought to be. And in the middle, we're holding it open, you know, all our lives. And in the middle is disease and inflammation and depression. But when that gap, I've had a couple moments in my life, but one big one when that gap went, and like, I was really sick when that happened. And when it happened, I was all better. 3 weeks later, it was just like, I am going to take these marriage vows to myself first. And it only makes sense because if you don't have it, you can't give it. You know, and I I take you, Karen, to be my forever love. I promise to be true to you in sickness and in health. Because how hard are we on ourselves when we're sick, right? We go to work anyway. Yeah, I got you. We go to work anyway. You know, we don't treat ourselves. Would you tell if your daughter was as sick as you are feeling, would you tell her go to school, go to work anyway?
Exactly.
No. You know, in sickness and in health, and richer or for poor, how hard are we on ourselves for the number in our bank account, that we're not wealthier, that it's not, you know, or the number in the scale? How hard are we on ourselves for that? So that it might take you a lifetime to be true to those vows to yourself. But to me, that's the only thing that matters, because when you close that gap, what you need to do to take care of yourself is automatic. You just know. But we're always looking at what the world tells us we ought to do.
Yeah, I know.
Yeah.
I know. Wow. On that note, thank you, both of you, so very much for this conversation. I loved it. I loved every minute of it. Thank you so much.
Loved it too. I mean, it could have been like totally boring, but I would still loved it because your delicious accent. It makes me feel like I'm on vacation.
Well, thank you so much for that.
It was really nice to meet you. Thank you for reaching out to us. It was really fun. When I got the little message, I was so excited. I'm like, oh my gosh, this is cool. I mean, what a great thing you're doing. I love it.
Yeah, this is lovely.
Thank you. My pleasure. I'm having fun doing it.
Good. Yeah. All right.
Bye.